Hello everyone, welcome back to Crimson Gray, Dusk and Dawn. Now this is the direct sequel to Crimson Gray, so if you haven't seen that before, I recommend checking it out. And this was developed and published by Sierra Lee. This was released on October 5th, 2018. Let's go ahead and start the game. This game is a direct sequel to the original Crimson Gray and will make less sense if you didn't play the first one. Okay, let's start far. I'll go play the first one, then I played the first one. The melancholy melody echoed within her, and Lizzie clung to it. Oh, there's so much color in the world. We're in Lizzie's eyeballs, I believe. There was a time when the melody hadn't been with her, though she preferred not to think about that time. That was before she met him. The melody was sad, but it was his, and so she loved it. And it was certainly better than emptiness. Lizzie had expected that meeting her special person would change everything. And it had. But to her surprise, it hadn't happened all at once. Instead, they both grew and changed, their life together becoming ever more wonderful, and her mind growing to encompass it. And she had a difficult time pinpointing exactly when she had first heard the melody. It would have been romantic if it had appeared at some momentous occasion, such as when she met him, or when they first made love, or on some future day when they were finally married. But instead it had slowly emerged, whispering at the edges of her mind. Smiling to herself, Lizzie began to contemplate the beginnings of the melody more thoroughly. But at that moment her world was disrupted by two people approaching her. Her eyes flickered over their substanceless bodies, analyzing everything about them. She distantly knew the girl's name and had only seen the boy on several occasions, both sophomores like John and her. So it's probably been 2 years or so after the first game. No physical threat. Lizzie had seen the two of them holding hands on the campus green, and from pupil dilation judged them to be a couple. So unlikely to be a threat to her relationship. But now that they were approaching her, she put on her usual smile and considered them more carefully. The boy was normal enough, but the girl, she was rather pretty and she dressed fairly well. It would take so little for her to try to show off what she had. Was that a teasing glint in her eye? Lizzie's smile widened just a bit more and she reclassified the girl as a minor threat. Huh, her shirt unbuttoned, and her legs looked more voluptuous. I feel like this is all just Lizzie's perception. Hey, sorry to interrupt. It's Lizzie, right? That's right. Nice to meet you. She responded politely as they introduced themselves, only tracking the information for future reference. Once, putting on a friendly mask had been difficult for her, and imitation was something she'd only observed. Now she could fake it more easily, mirroring real emotions she had when she was with him. It irritated her to waste her smiles on random people who didn't matter though, so as soon as possible Lizzie encouraged them to get to the point. We're trying to start a social thing for other couples on campus. They may be about the same age, but hanging out with single college kids just isn't the same, you know? We don't have any people yet, so if you have any ideas, we're open to them. Either of you, your husband's name is John, right? Oh wait, we married early then. Why did she know his name? Calm down, Lizzie, calm down. Lizzie's smile became brittle as she stared over the girl again. searching for the slice tick that might give her away. She had played it off like she wasn't sure about his name, but she knew. Lizzie was sure of it. Perhaps her analysis of their threat was wrong. She had dismissed them as a couple, but neglected to consider how impure most love was. This girl might ignore her partner and target John. Or they could be one of those sexually adventurous couples she'd read about, prowling for other couples. Lizzie had not given a single real thought to the subject until that moment, when bloody hatred clawed itself out of her soul. Just as she was about to let those emotions leak out onto her face, Lizzie heard the melody again over the beating of her heart. Sad, but calm. She wasn't sure what John would say to her, but the thought of him soothed the growing rage. It was also possible that the girl hadn't wanted to seem too forward, like they hadn't been tracking them. Checking their faces more carefully, Lizzie saw hints of nervousness and forced casualness. She set aside her main concern, flagging as a potential problem for future consideration. Only a tiny fraction of a second had passed Lizzie. Oops, my bad. Had passed. Lizzie gave them both an apologetic smile. That's very kind of you. But it's hard for us to have much of a social life. We're trying to get our degrees quickly. Oh, that's a shame. The offer is still open, though. Let your husband know, okay? Okay. With that, Lizzie brushed past him as quickly as she could without seeming rude. Despite the potential threat and new source of danger to consider, she also felt a little warm. People thought they were married? Oh, they weren't? They're not married. Okay. They were often together on campus, but Lizzie had thought she'd restrained the majority of her affection for when they were alone. The warmth drained away slowly as Lizzie went about her business, though. They still weren't married. John was willing to tie the knot, but the thought of it made her heart leap into her chest. It had nothing to do with the idea of being with him. Lizzie berated herself for every thought, and everything to do with how she was sure that the wedding would draw bad luck to them somehow. At first she hadn't wanted to get married because she was afraid that the official record would draw Quaytech down on them somehow. But over 2 years had passed since the violent incident, and it was clear that they had escaped. Enrolling in college hadn't drawn any negative attention either, so it was safe for them to get married. And yet, something would go wrong. Even if they didn't invite anyone, she was sure that someone would ruin their day. And while no one could possibly ruin their relationship, she would only have one wedding day, and she wanted to be perfect. Suddenly, the people around her were too many. Oh my god, the music changed. It's terrifying. Faceless, soulless creatures moving past her indifferently. The drone of their voices drowned out the melody. Stopping in place, Lizzie frowned, struggling to regain it. This melody had drifted out of her mind, and no amount of thinking about the joy she felt with him would bring it back. Checking the time, Lizzie decided that she had enough before she needed to get to class. Normally she preferred to arrive early, but that was no longer a priority. The gentle buzz of class, which she usually found passable, if a pale second of being with him, would now only disrupt her. It was difficult to hold herself back, but Lizzie managed to sprint across campus no faster than an ordinary runner. This wasn't the first time, and someone from the track team had actually tried to recruit her. That was unacceptable. The track uniforms were flattering, but everyone would be wearing them. Of course, he would come out to events to be supportive, but that meant his eyes would be assaulted by the entire female track team. That could not be allowed. Whoa, my mouse is gravitating. Let it go, Lizzie. John wouldn't want you to let it go. What? Let it go, Lizzie. Thank God. Lizzie gripped her forehead with both hands, forcing the thought away. She didn't need to do that anymore. The hollowness within her grew and grew as she left campus. Fortunately, their little apartment was nearby. A split home provided as housing for couples. It had taken serious work to obtain one despite not being married, as the fools and admissions thought there was a chance she and John might break up. Since it was 2:52, John was likely to be reading for a class. He had referenced a paper being due soon, but he never went down to the computer lab until she was in class. After all, he knew that she might need him. His consideration made a warm glow spread through Lizzie, but that wasn't enough. She needed to see him. She had her key in hand as she approached the door. It was already unlocked, almost as she had known. Lizzie threw it open and rushed inside. Hi, John. It's nice to see you in a positive light. Oh, we got some photos in the background. We got them. Oh, that's the main menu screen. There's John just standing there. And a knife. Big old knife. And another knife. And more knives. At least they're kitchen knives. Oh, there's another knife down there too. John sat on the couch reading a textbook. He looked perfect, and when he glanced up at the noise and saw her there, gasping for breath with her eyes wild, he just gave a comforting smile. Everything all right, Lizzie? Of course it is. I just forgot a book I needed for class. She swept up to him and wrapped her arms around his shoulders to give him a slow kiss. The sight of him had calmed her considerably, and Lizzie tried to keep the desperation out of the kiss. Yes, this warm intimacy with him was what she needed. There was no sense giving him anything to worry about. As she refers to just him. With a capital H. No John, just him. She had found him, her perfect person. Lizzie drew back slightly and rested her forehead against his. Her heart filled with warmth and his melody strong in her mind once again. I love you, Lizzie. Ah, it made her heart flutter just as much as the first time he'd said it. I love you too, John. More than anything. But as happy as she was to reply, she sensed that something wasn't quite right. There was a bit of tension in his eyes. Was he carrying some weight? Depression? Had someone done something to him? No. Lizzie realized that wasn't it. He was looking at her with concern, having sensed some part of her neediness. It was wonderful that he was so attentive, but the idea that she could have caused him any pain broke her heart. Is there anything you want to talk about? Encourage her, bring up something else, ask them directly, explain fully. Let's explain fully. The key to a good relationship is to explain everything. Well, there is this couple. She explained the encounter, hesitating a moment to give him her full thoughts, but eventually sharing, as expected. He wasn't disturbed by her fears and didn't tell her that she was strong. John had been through too much with her, after all. You think it was nothing unusual? Judging from what you said, they just sound lonely to me. They probably just want to find people they have something in common with. Maybe. But even if that was true, I still don't want them anywhere near us. They're probably stupid, evil people, John. All we need is the two of us. He smiled ruefully. but there was real affection in his expression too. John pulled her into a quick embrace and squeezed her tight. "And if that's how you feel, we don't need to interact with other people. I kinda want to just keep my head down and graduate anyway." "I agree." She cuddled with him for a moment longer, nestling her head against his chest, then reluctantly pulled back, watching her hair as it clung to him. Though she longed to stay, she knew that it was better to go to class. Maximizing time in the short term would only hinder their long-term objectives, and she wanted as much of him as she could possibly get. Lizzie headed to their bedroom and traded one spiral notebook for another, feeling a moment of guilt at the deception. But no, it was better this way. She could take the burden onto herself and leave his life lighter. She left with a kiss and a cheery wave, but then crept around the side of the apartment. She had left a little earlier than necessary to arrive to class on time for this very purpose. From the perfect angle, she could see him through the window, going back to his book, studying so seriously to help them have a better life together. Lizzie then tried to hide a broad smile on her face, just spent a while watching him. There was less need to watch him now that they were together, but she still enjoyed it. Once she had been observed, and the other girl had made the despicable assumption that Lizzie was concerned that he would cheat on her, as if such a thing was possible, as if she needed any reason except to look at him. She did like to observe him sometimes to make sure he wasn't sad again. John's depression was mostly under control now that she had abandoned the awful Koitek medicine, but she knew it was part of him that needed to be watched. The thought of his inner sadness made Lizzie want to run back inside and kiss him again, forget class and just spend the time making love until he looked only happy and relaxed. Reluctantly, Lizzie pulled herself away and headed toward the lecture hall. John was mentally healthy. He wouldn't forget about her love just because she was away for a little while. She'd made sure of that. She arrived just a little late, but was relaxed at university and no one cared too much. Lizzie carefully set out her books and focused on the lesson. There are worse things than classes. If the universe declared that she couldn't spend every single moment with him, she needed something else to fill her time. With a few exceptions like psychology, classes weren't obnoxious at all. A few even provided knowledge that might have utility in the future. Like what? And all of it had some utility in getting them closer to their degrees. Once it had been difficult for Lizzie to think about such long-term plans, but now she could see how both of them earning degrees would help them create the life they wanted. But after that, things became more tangled in her mind. She wanted to be with him. She wanted whatever he wanted. But he was convinced that they should take jobs in the industry, play some small role in preventing pharmaceutical giants like Koitek from doing anything as terrible as they'd done at their old high school. Or the experiment they had done that had led to Lizzie's existence. The idea that John wanted to make sure that there would never be anyone like her, that she would be the only one. It made her tingle all over. She didn't think he would approve of that thought, but she liked it so much that she kept it to herself. But the idea of getting involved with Koitek again, even indirectly, still left her. She wanted what he wanted, of course. A life together. They would have that, no matter what they chose. It would be fine. For once, Lizzie set thoughts aside and focused fully on class. After the lecture finished, Lizzie practically skipped out of the hall. It had been her last class of the day, and John had likely finished the work that he needed to do in the computer lab. That left them the rest of the day to themselves. So she wouldn't have to leave him again, Lizzie stopped by the store first, since they were low on food. It hurt her pride as a cook that they had to eat ramen, but money was tight. The least she could do was purchase cheap vegetables and enhance the experience. As she picked out appropriate ones, Lizzie carefully kept track of her spending versus the amount of money she had left. She had aged out of child support, not that the man who had impregnated her mother had ever been reliable, which combined with college expenses left her in a more difficult financial situation than ever before in her life. She was careful to add everything up in her head so that she still had enough money to drop by the pharmacy after getting John their groceries. There's a small locally owned one where she felt comfortable getting John's depression medication, but it seemed to be getting more expensive these days. Of course, she did still own Abby's home in their hometown, but Lizzie wanted to avoid anything to do with it in case Koitek was watching, and John would never want to live there anyway. Perhaps after they graduated, she could sell the house for down payment on one of their own. That idea gave her a pleasant hum of emotions as she finished her errands and headed back home, still with a spring in her step. But when Lizzie arrived, she found the door unlocked. She quickly pulled out her key, adding another scratch mark to the lock before successfully opening it. The apartment was empty, briefly making her heart hammer in her chest. There was a note on the table and she seized it, eyes flickering over the words. John had gone to the computer lab and said he hoped to be back before she was, but that it might be longer, so she had an explanation. But even as Lizzie breathed a sigh of relief, part of her mind began to churn with other thoughts. What if this was some kind of excuse? No, John would never do such a thing. Never. Lizzie crumpled the paper in her hands and nervously tried to smooth it out again. John would never betray her. She knew that now, carried the fact tightly in her heart. But the world was filled with awful people, terrible women who might try to seduce him. And even if he pushed them away, the idea of one of them laying a hand on him. And what if Koitek got a hold of him somehow? They'd already tried it once, to use him to get to her. She thought they were safe now, but what if she was wrong? Once, Lizzie might have flown out of the door and hunted him down, until she could be sure that he was safe now. Now she found herself pacing, fingers tangling in her hair as she tried to quiet the thoughts screaming in her head. On a whim, Lizzie grabbed the extra spiral notebook and she'd taken and slapped it down on the table. She began fiercely writing everything in her head, letting thoughts out to give herself a little relief. She'd done this once, before she had met him. Just like she collected pictures of him, now that she had the real thing. She neglected such habits, but they had helped her once. Perhaps they could again. Finally she was done. Lizzie took a deep breath and looked over the page of furious scribbling. Some of the thoughts there embarrassed her. She needed to trust them utterly, but it was good to get them out of her head and onto paper. She felt calm again, and the memory wafted from the deep recess of her soul, the place where she kept him, comforting her even now. Though the page was a mess, she had returned from the edge. Lizzie realized that she was gripping a knife in her other hand. After a pause, she set it down. Though her mind was clear, she still wasn't sure what to do. Obviously, John would never cheat on her. He had been very considerate to leave a note, and no doubt that explained the situation. It was also unlikely that anything terrible had happened to him. She still missed him, though, and wanted to drown the rest of her fears in his presence. It was possible that he would be unhappy if his work had gone too long, and might be happy to see her. Lizzie closed the notebook and put it with her others, considering what she should do. Hmm. Stop with dinner. Let's meet John at the computer lab. Floating to the old cabinet in the corner of the room, Lizzie opened it and looked over her collection. She selected her axe, of course, and took out another knife to complement the one she always carried. Yes, this felt better. Okay, I understand self-defense, Lizzie, but this is just a computer lab. More certain in what she needed to do now, the stress melted away. Her world narrowed down to a single focus as she left, locked the door, and headed toward the lab. There were other people on their way, but they didn't exist for her. No physical threats, no relevant factors. Eventually, she reached the building that held the computer lab, where less well-off students like them had to go. She slid around to the side entrance, just in case, then walked inward toward where she hoped he would be. Ah, it's John, with that guy. Finally, she spotted him, trying to collect his things but talking to another student. A boy. Someone he worked with at the library. Lizzie knew his name. Not a threat. She breathed a sigh of relief and leaned back against the wall beside the door to the lab. There was a simple explanation as to why he was late, as she had known there would be, but it was still comforting to watch him. Lizzie slid a hand into her purse and pressed the shaft of her axe while she waited. John finally exited, and though he looked surprised to see her for a moment, after that, he smiled. Lizzie, sorry, am I that late? No, I just had to see you. She greeted him with a hug and a quick kiss, then pulled back. John, my bad. John, let's go back home. Sure, I'm finished now. But is everything completely alright? You seem more nervous recently. It's just stress, I think. I wish we had more time together. I know. I wish things could be different too. But after this semester... She listened eagerly as he kept talking, soaking up every word. There had been a bit of tension in his voice at the beginning, and she realized guiltily that she might be adding to the stress. It slowly melted away as they spoke. By the time they neared the apartment, things were back to normal. Lizzie gave him another smile. I bought some things, but I haven't gotten started. Do you want to make dinner together? Sure, that sounds nice. I'm starved, so early is good. John set about helping her with the preparations. They didn't have a lot to do, but even if they were just eating ramen, Lizzie wanted to give it her best. Lizzie set about cutting up the vegetables, removing the bad portions and reducing the rest to appetizing chunks. Her knife flickered satisfyingly, perfectly balanced for her hand. They might need to make do in many ways, but she had excellent kitchen knives to work with. Even when money was tight, he had never suggested selling her knife collection. She would have, though, would have gladly sold every knife and every single thing she owned for his sake. Knife still flying, Lizzie frowned to herself. No, that wasn't right. She'd need her axe and a few knives to defend him properly. Plus, John wouldn't want her to give up everything like that. Considering such warm thoughts, Lizzie flipped her knife around her hand a few unnecessary times as she finished cutting. Not the kind of thing she could do in public. But here there was no one to see her but John, and he only smiled to see her enjoying herself. John had started the water boiling, so it was ready as soon as she finished the vegetables. Then there were only a few details to take care of. Eventually they both sat down together on opposite sides of their small table. And it was nothing much, but it was theirs, and that was wonderful. She would have been happy to just watch him eat. She knew that he loved to talk to her even more. The idea that he wanted her to open herself up to him, even her darkest thoughts, always made her happy, but for today she had nothing particularly dark on her mind.
So you implied that you got held up in the lab?
Mostly it was nothing unusual, just had to answer some questions, but Dan called me at the end. Wanted me to switch shifts at the library. He wanted me to do tonight, which I said wouldn't work. Said we had to do some weird rescheduling.
Hasn't that been happening a lot lately?
Yeah, and I might be picking up even more shifts. Figure it can't hurt, right? No, but she didn't like him to be away from home more often. Lizzie had to admit that the library job was a good one, allowing him to study or read most of the time, but she still didn't like it. At least she could visit him without being a hindrance.
Why did he feel the need to work so much, though?
Lizzie had her own campus job,
and the numbers of their debt weren't too awful thanks to scholarships. Would it be better if they could get rid of it? Maybe she should consider going back to the house and selling it after all.
But she considered asking him all these questions. Lizzie decided to hold back. John had many concerns of his own, and adding her anxiety to those might make him depressed again. She was stronger. It was better for her to shoulder the burden. After dinner, they moved to the couch to work. It was a ratty old thing they'd gotten off the curb, but it was fairly soft and it served to hold them. They sat on opposite sides, each with their textbooks, their feet touching in between. Just being able to be so near him, so comfortably. Lizzie slid her feet against his leg and gave him a bright smile when he looked up at her. An old part of her wanted to act immediately, to have sex before the moment could pass. But they had been together for 2 years, and moments like this were hardly a rare thing. Slowly her mind had learned that she didn't need to be desperate. The life she wanted with him was filled with moments like this too. Despite her thoughts circling around him, Lizzie finished her work rather quickly. Because of it, in a sense, there was a purpose to so many activities that had once been just going through the motions. Lizzie saw he was still busy working and spent a little time admiring him. She loved that look of concentration as he became fully absorbed with something. It was even better when it was directly toward her, but just his concentration was cute too. She could have watched forever, but once she got off her fill, Lizzie stood up. She kissed him on the cheek, then headed to the other side of their apartment. They didn't have a lot of space, but there was enough for her to retrieve her axe from the cupboard and experiment with it a little. She hadn't experienced any more physical instability since the incident, leaving her very capable of protecting him, but she needed to be cautious. Though she didn't like to think about it, Lizzie had to admit that there was a small chance she could hurt John by accident. Even if they had never had a serious conflict with Koitek again, she needed her knives to feel secure. The idea that she might cause the slightest injury by accident. Lizzie practiced carefully, but following through with all the force she could muster and bringing the axe to a halt at a moment's notice. Practice was soothing. Lizzie soon found herself smiling. There had been a time in her life, after she found him, when it had been possible that she might harm him. In order to preserve their love, though those thoughts now struck her as alien and horrible, she would never hurt him. Never. But that meant she needed to always be prepared. When Lizzie finished, she discovered that John was watching her. She had no doubt that her expression was far from inviting, as she had been imagining carrying down threats to them, but he was watching her fondly. Lizzie beamed at him and returned her axe to its place. And I will stop here for today, because I think it's going to be a short one, and I don't want to finish it too soon. But if you are enjoying this video, please leave a like and comment what you think so far. And if you want to get this game, I will put the link down below. If you want to watch more visual novels, please check my channel. Thank you, and take care.